Hello and welcome to Chapter 4 of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Today we continue after the cliffhanger of Chapter 3. Been doing a bit of the cliffhanger thing, I guess, the past episode. So, Chapter 4 is called Fate. And, well, for the people who've already played the game, they probably know what's coming next. Or at least I think they do. So, yeah. Let's just continue because obviously after chapter 3, I don't think that people had expected that the story would end there. I mean, it could have gone for retelling like that. Well, oops, game over. But it didn't. So, here's chapter 4, Fate. Warmth diffuses through my body, making me feel comfortable and at ease. Everything around me feels soft and warm. The sensation of being crushed in impenetrable darkness replaced by one akin to floating. I cannot recall ever having felt this peace before. Through my eyelids, bright light caresses my eyes. This is such a difference from my last moments in those tunnels, running for my life while the world came crashing down on me. Feeling startled, the memories come flooding back to my conscious mind. The sudden threat to the village, the enemies, the sword, and above all, the desperate fight against the Spider Queen. And Saria. I'm about to open my eyes and look around me for Saria, when I feel a sudden sharp pinch on my right cheek. Are you sure he's still alive, oh great one? I hear a high-pitched voice say while I open my eyes and look around me. What I see isn't the threat which I was suspecting subconsciously, nor is it some kind of blissful afterlife. Blinking against the bright sunlight, I can see that I'm lying on the soft grass of the great acre tree's meadow. Hearing a buzzing sound like that of a small bird, I turn my head around and see a winged figure darting through the air like a butterfly, yet unlike any butterfly which I have seen before. I can distinguish silvery wings and a slim body, shaped like that of a kokiri, only much smaller. Suddenly images from that one dream, many nights ago, fill my mind. Navi, I gasp. The dream images and reality momentarily becoming one. The fairy stops darting around for a brief while and looks at me with her head tilted. That's my name, yes, but have we met before? She asks me. Then she looks away, as though she is intensely listening to something which I cannot hear. She nods a few times. I see, I understand now. She responds to the voice which I cannot hear. Then I too can hear the great Deku Tree's voice. Welcome, Link. I would like to thank you for risking your life to save mine. What you did was very brave and courageous. Blushing at the sudden honor and realizing that I can't just keep lying here on the grass in the face of a mighty guardian, I quickly attempt to get up on my feet. Too quickly, I find, as I sway to and from on unstable legs while I nearly blank out from the lack of blood to my head. Returning to a sitting position, I imagine that I can hear the great Deku Tree chuckling. Blushing even more now, I again focus my attention on him. I notice that Navi takes up a position near me. Link, what I'm about to tell you may be very disturbing to you. Please do not despair at these tidings. The truth is that I am dying. When this curse which you defeated was put on me, my fate was already sealed. Before I depart this world, I wish to tell you about a few matters of the utmost urgency and importance. This curse was put on me by an evil man from the faraway desert, a person whose intention it is to conquer all of Hyrule and put it under his rule. He perceived me to be an obstacle when I refused to cooperate, and thus he cursed me. While he may think that this part of his plan may have succeeded, there is one thing which he didn't take into account. That one thing being you, Link. There's a short pause here, as though the great Deku Tree is gathering his strength. Glancing to my left, I see Navi wiping what appear to be tears from her face. Inside, I can feel my thoughts racing. What does the great Deku Tree mean with all of this? Is he really dying? What would the Kokiri, nay, the entire Kokiri forest do without his presence? And how would I make a difference in this upcoming conflict? Troubled, I can hear the great Deku Tree resume his story. Let me tell you something about yourself which you do not yet know, Link. You weren't born in this forest. In fact, you aren't a Kokiri, but a Hylian. Years ago, a severely injured woman made it into this forest together with her baby, seeking my protection. Before she passed away, she told me about some dark force pursuing her and her child. She begged me to take care of her baby, which I agreed to. Deeming it the safest if you were raised as a Kokiri, this became the story the other Kokiri and you were told. You quickly became friends with Saria and never knew about your violent past until now. I find myself reeling from the suddenness of hearing all of this. I'm a Hylian. I had a mother who died to protect me from some threat. I feel a sudden bitterness rising up inside of me as I realize that my life so far has been a lie. Only the knowledge that it was done to ensure my safety and to fulfill the promise made to my dying mother keeps me from getting up and leaving this place. You're right, perhaps it wasn't entirely fair to you to keep the truth hidden. However, don't forget what you gained. Friends, many trouble-free years during which you were able to do and learn the things that you preferred. Would you call your friendship with Saria a lie as well? At this, I shake my head, somewhat angry at myself for exposing myself like this, suddenly overcome with a sense of dread. I'm about to speak when the Great Decade Tree answers my questions before I can even ask them. Don't worry about Saria. She was only unconscious by the time that you defeated the Spider Queen. She is back at the Kokiri village with the others. Now, listen well, for I do not have much time left. You are the chosen one, who will save Hyrule from the evil that now threatens to destroy it. Your task won't be easy, with many hardships and events that will test you to your limits, but you must persist if Hyrule is to survive. You do not appear in the evil man's plans, and thus only you can disrupt them. Do you understand? Dazzled, I just nod, wondering whether I have finally taken leave of my senses. Leslie, there is just one final thing. You know the story of the world's creation, don't you? I nod again. Very well, the Great Decade Tree resumes. Then you know Varroa with the courage, Din with her power, and Nayru with her wisdom together created this world. When they left this world, they left behind the Triforce, the combined forces of their powers. It is this Triforce which you must obtain, as it is beyond the powers of a mere mortal to defeat the evil that is now threatening Hyrule. Will you accept this quest? Still not feeling like I'm thinking clearly, I do recognize the truth in the Great Decade Tree's words. I also have no reason to believe that anything which I've heard so far is untrue, especially considering the events which I've been through so far today, assuming that today is still the same day as when the spiders first attacked the village. I sigh briefly. Then I lift my head so that I can face the Great Decade Tree. I accept, I reply. Very well, the Great Decade Tree responds. Allow me to give you this item which you will need to gain access to the sacred realm where the Triforce remains. After briefly wondering what this item may be and how it will be presented, I become aware of a bright glimmer in front of me, which keeps increasing in strength and size until it's almost impossible to look at it directly. Then suddenly the bright green light recedes and I can see what is hovering in front of me. It's a green gemstone, a large emerald, the like of which I've never seen before. It slowly moves towards me until I can gently hold it in my arms. What you are holding is one of the 3 spiritual stones, the Kokiri Emerald, which the evil man still desires for his own purposes. The other 2 are held by the Gorons and the Zoras. Ask them for their support in your quest. The Great Decade Tree remained silent for many moments after this, making me, and clearly Navi as well, quite nervous. I'm about to speak again when I hear his voice, to my relief. Navi, listen well. I want you to support Link on this quest. Take him to Hyrule Castle to meet the princess there, so you'll be able to help him further. Link, feeling shocked by the effort that it seems to take the Great Decade Tree to speak at this point, it takes me a moment to realize that I'm being addressed again. I want you to listen well to Navi. She has seen and experienced more than many others. You should find her help invaluable. I nod furiously, as my throat is choked by the tears which I'm suppressing. I try to wipe away the few rebellious tears which have made it down my cheeks. Good luck, Link and Navi. Farewell. The voice of the Great Acre Tree vanishes from my mind, and I know that this was the last time that I will ever hear his comforting voice. Looking up at the Great Acre Tree, I can see how the golden sheen is already fading from its branches and leaves. As an ashen veil covers its former luster, discarded leaves find their way to the ground. Next to me, I hear little sobbing noises. Turning towards Navi, I see that she is sobbing uncontrollably. Feeling a sorrow answered by the feelings inside of me, I move a bit closer to her and utter her name. After a few more sobs, Navi looks up at me for a moment, then flies towards and clings to me. Clumsily putting my arms around the tiny fairy who is wetting my clothes with her tiny tears, I close my eyes and give in to the feelings of sorrow and anger that are now churning inside my chest. Together we remain there on the Great Acre Tree's meadow, crying and mourning until the last daylight fades from the sky. By the time that Navi and I make our way back to the Kokiri village, night has already fallen. When we approach the village, we are greeted by the light from many fires. At first I feel alarmed at the sight, yet as we come closer, I realize that the fires were lit by the Kokiri, probably while they were waiting for our return. Inside the village we can see many figures, one of whom heads towards us as we approach the edge of the village. It is Saria, who approaches us with a somewhat worried look on her face. Once she sees my face and the truth that is reflected in my eyes, she immediately understands. I see, she says. We embrace each other. It is then that Saria notices Navi, who has kept her presence quite subdued. First looking at the fairy, with curiosity-filled eyes, she then turns back to me. Before she can ask anything, I briefly explain to her what has happened. So you're going away then, on this quest, she asks. I nod in response. I do not think that I have much of a choice in this matter, it being the Great Acre Tree's final request to me, not to mention the importance of this quest if even half of the threat he described to me is real. Saria merely nods to indicate that she understands. She then turns her attention towards Navi, who is hovering some distance behind me. So you're Navi, the fairy, she asks, upon which Navi moves closer to Saria and nods. My name is Saria, it's a pleasure to meet you, Saria says, smiling, while she extends her hand towards Navi, who first seems unsure what to do, then puts both her tiny hands on either side of Saria's hand. Same here, Navi says, managing a faint smile for the first time since the events today. So, any of you feeling hungry? I think I can manage to find some food for the two of you, Saria asks both of us, at which we nod, suddenly realizing the emptiness in our stomachs. Following her, we come across many Kokiri, some of whom are just sitting there, staring at nothing in particular, others talking with each other, others yet again simply eating, including Mido, who seems to have finally recovered from his ordeal. The faces of most Kokiri reveal that they fear for the loss of the guardian and father, yet I see that determination on many faces to continue their lives no matter what hardships. I get a feeling that the Kokiri will get through all of this just fine. Navi and I spend the night at Saria's place. We all feel the need for companionship at this time, as well as the need to talk about many things. Having grown up together, it isn't easy for Saria and me to part like this, and yet we realize that there is no other way. As for Navi, she tells us that fairies are fairly solitary and will be fine wherever she goes. She has known the Great Acre Tree for as long as he's been alive, however, and it isn't a loss which is easy to deal with. At least knowing who is responsible for his death does give us a target to focus on, in the form of our quest. Tomorrow, Navi and I will embark on this quest, which I have no idea where it will lead. I've read some things about a world beyond the Kokiri forest in the books from the Forest Temple's library, and from what little is known among the Kokiri themselves. Yet I'm well aware that I probably don't even know half of what I need to survive and find my way. My last thought before I drift off to sleep is how grateful I am that Navi will be traveling with me. The next morning dawns with the most beautifully colored sky that I've ever seen. It's as though even nature tries to remind us that there will always be hope. When I get out of my makeshift bed, I realize that neither Navi nor Saria are inside the house. Quickly getting dressed, I find a carefully prepared breakfast on the table with a letter next to it telling me to eat well and have all the luck in the world on my quest. It is signed with Saria's name. Not sure what to think yet, I step outside the house and take a few deep breaths of the crisp morning air. You finally woke up, didn't you? A high-pitched voice near me says. Turning around, I see Navi sitting on a nearby tree branch. She looks a lot more cheery than she did last night. Good morning to you too. Did you by any chance see Saria? I ask her. Navi shakes her head in response. Haven't seen her. Maybe she isn't the type for goodbyes. Maybe, I mutter, mostly to myself. I will have to go to my house first anyway to gather some things that I will need on the road. Maybe I'll run into her. Navi joins me while I walk towards my house. Even this short walk through the village is already difficult for me. Having spent every day of my life so far in this village, every house, every stone, every bend in the path holds many memories to the point where the thought of leaving this behind, to perhaps never see it again, makes me feel almost sick to my stomach. By the time I get to my house, I can barely see straight anymore from the tears that have welled up in my eyes. Stumbling inside, I'm assaulted with yet more memories, forcing me to furiously blink away the tears which keep appearing. Then I notice something out of the ordinary, something which I most definitely did not put there, yet which is all too familiar to me. On my bed lies a sword, together with a scabbard and a shield that I got from the Forest Temple. Both of them together must have saved my life many times. Sitting down on my knees next to the bed, I caress each line of the sword, each scratch in the shield. I notice that Navi has moved next to me. The Great Acre Tree wanted you to take both of them with you on your quest. The sword is called the Kokiri sword. Nobody really knows who forged it or for what purpose. But for ages it has been the symbol of the strength of the Kokiri forest. It allows its bearer, if the heart is pure, to draw out immense strength and to cut through even magically reinforced armor. I nod, my earlier suspicion regarding the sword confirmed. The shield holds no special powers, but it is made from the wood of a tree from this forest, Navi resumes. It's still a pretty sturdy shield, and it should do fine until you grow older and can handle larger, even metal shields. I nod again, unsure how to respond. The thought of growing older and with it taller due to my highly inheritance still is too new for me to have to come to terms with. After I gather some of my belongings into a bundle, which I strap to my back, together with the shield, and put the sword into its scabbard, I feel that I am as ready to depart as I will ever be. Motioning to Navi, I head for the door of my house. Before I close the door behind me, I take one last look inside. It feels like taking a look into a faraway past. With a heavy feeling inside my chest, I close the door and head into the direction of the road which leads outside the forest, towards Hyrule Castle. Our progress is slow, not because the road is so difficult, with it being very easy to walk on with no obstacles worth mentioning, as well as no wind, a rapidly warming morning sun and many birds chattering in the trees. Normally I would be feeling cheerful during these times, yet normally I would be walking with Saria towards the Forest Temple, looking forward to yet another day filled with discoveries and the pleasure of each other's company. While I don't want to offend Navi, her company doesn't quite fill the void yet, if it ever will. Looking ahead at a road which will soon reach the grassy plains of Hyrule Field, I suddenly stop, staring in disbelief at what surely has to be an illusion, For a short distance ahead, I can see Saria standing among the trees. She's holding onto the trunk of one tree, half covered behind it, as though she's trying to convince herself to fully appear to us. After rubbing my eyes, I can still see her, so I call out her name. Moving in closer, she apparently has conquered her doubts as she steps towards me. Saria, I begin to speak when she holds up her hand. I somehow knew this day would come, Saria says, but it's okay. I know you have to go, even if I don't want it to happen. I also know that I can't leave this forest, so I won't be begging you to take me with you. All I can do is pray that you will return safely after finishing your quest. Saria now looks directly at me. I have something that I want to give to you, something that will hopefully aid you on your quest. I suddenly notice that she has kept her other hand hidden behind her back while speaking. She now moves that hand within sight, offering me what it is holding. After one glance at it, I stare back at Saria. Your ocarina? But you made it yourself. Taught yourself to play it. I thought you would never want to show it to any of the other Kokiri out of fear that they would damage it. And now you want to give it to me? It's alright. I want you to have something to remember me by. Something physical to hold which will give you hope when things are looking bleak. Please remember our days together. I nod and accept the gift, careful not to drop or damage it. Pulling some clean clothes out of my bundle, I wrap the ocarina into them and carefully put it back into the bundle. That taken care of, I return my attention to Saria, who is gnawing her lower lip, as though trying to hold back many unsaid thoughts. Thank you so very much, Saria. You'll see, I'll be back before you know it, to resume my work on the forest temple, I say reassuringly. We embrace each other one more time, while Nafi keeps herself at a discreet distance. No more words are spoken between Saria and me, as none would suffice. After standing there for a while, I let go of her hands. I hurriedly resume walking down the road. Looking behind me a few times, I notice that Saria is still standing there motionlessly. The next time that I look, she's gone. Have you ever had to say goodbye to someone without knowing whether you would ever see that person again? I ask Nafi, as we've been walking for a while. A few times, yes, Nafi responds. If you want me to give you tips on how to deal with it, I'm afraid I can't give you any. It is just one of the things which will ease with time. Flying in front of me, Nafi looks at me and smiles. If it helps any, your friend Saria seems like a wonderful person. I haven't been following the two of you that often, but I can imagine the many fond memories you must carry with you. I find myself smiling a bit as well, then I ask, You've been following us? The Great Deku Tree had me keep an eye on things at times in the forest, and I would come across both of you occasionally. It seemed like you two always had a lot of fun together. I nod, while many fond memories come flooding back. That we did. Oh, seems like we're nearing the edge of the forest now, Nafi exclaims suddenly, darting ahead of me. Looking ahead, I can see that the forest is getting even less dense, and the light of us in front of us is so bright it is as though we're walking towards a really big meadow. I guess it is one way to look at Hyrule Field, which are the grassy plains that connect all parts of Hyrule with each other, from the mountains and Hyrule Town in the north to Lake Hylia in the south, Kokiri Forest in the east, to the desert in the west. I try to recall more detail from the books that I've read on the geography of Hyrule. There are supposedly a number of farms on Hyrule Field, but otherwise it's largely uninhabited. I just hope it isn't as expensive as I've read, considering that we'll have to walk all the way to Hyrule Castle. Noticing that Nafi has returned again from a short exploration, I ask her how far she thinks it is to Hyrule Castle. About a day or two. We should find a farm to stay during the night, as it's too unsafe to set up camp on the plains themselves. Why would it be unsafe? I dare to ask. Stalchild animated skeletons are known to appear during the night, as well as the occasional Poe, a kind of ghost. Some say they are what remain of the soldiers of some ancient war fought on the plains. Others say that they are people who got lost or ambushed and perished. Nobody really knows what their true origins are anymore, but it is a fact that they can injure or even kill. I find myself shivering at Navi's words. I had no idea things could be this frightening outside of the safety of the forest. Yet again, I question the wisdom of sending me out into this strange world, where I'm probably even more likely to get killed by some random spirit or walking skeleton before I even encounter this evil man from the desert. Oh yes, during the day we should also keep an eye out for peaheads, large plants which can fly for a short period if they sense prey nearby, which includes Hylians. Navi adds. Inwardly I groan. Then I notice that we're now rapidly beginning to leave the forest behind. I can see more than just glimpses of the plains, as well as the blue sky above it. After just a bit longer, we passed a large tree alongside the road, which at this point consists of little more than packed dirt with occasional stone of the original ancient road still visible in some places. Before me lies Hyrule Field, its grassy plains basking in the bright sun, while a gentle breeze caresses its gradual slopes, causing ripples in the grass. It's a sight the likes of which I have never before seen in my life, and one I will never forget. I feel as though I could sit down and watch this peaceful and hypnotizing scene all day. It's amazing, I managed to utter, breathlessly. Isn't it? Navi says cheerily. Now get ready for more walking and blisters than you've ever experienced before in a single day. And that was chapter 4. So, not really cliffhanger, I guess, this time around. I must apologize terribly for that. I mean, it's horrible omission, and I really should have added a really big cliffhanger there, just, something like a peahead flying towards them or something, and of course, nobody would ever believe that at this point the story would end, so it's kind of futile anyway. In the original game, at this point, it's pretty much like you have, if you've finished your first dungeon and you get your quest handed to you and you're being told about everything, all the bad things that have happened without your knowledge in the world out there, and, well, here's your quest and please go save the world. It's fairly... I will not claim that Legend of Zelda games, the stories behind them are incredibly original. That's also not really the reason why I like this particular game story so much. It's more this particular world of this game, the worlds, the characters in it, their relationships which are being suggested, like with Saria. In the original game, you have this one cutscene. So after you've basically the scene where you say your goodbyes and you leave the forest, and Saria is indeed not there, and then you're almost outside of the forest, and then there is this cutscene, and there is Saria, and you have this. I think most people who have played the game or seen the game will agree that it is pretty much one of the most touching parts of the story, where you say goodbye to Saria. Of course, being a video game, you have some limitations in how far you can really push things and how emotional you can make it. But still, that one scene, it's really nice, and I definitely wanted to capture that in this retelling. Because now the interesting thing after chapter 4 is, the world has opened, you have access to the entire world, you're on Hyrule Field, and you can, as described, you can go anywhere. Like, okay, I mean, you're supposed to go to Hyrule Castle now, but honestly, if you are playing the game, you're like, well, let's first look at all the other things and get killed a few times, and then I will go there. That's pretty much how most people would play it. Of course, it not being a video game, like getting killed in this story is basically what will be literally game over, because you cannot. I mean, this whole Deus Ex Machina, you can write it in there, and suddenly the character was not dead after all. They were revived or something, but that's not really doable, and. Yeah, so it's I think that's the interesting thing about from this point onwards with this retelling, what the original story which I had in mind when after playing through the original game and thinking about the story and coming up with how I would do it differently, and I tried to really capture it into something which is more of a cinematic experience. I mean, it is linear, obviously, because, well, it's a story. It's not a choose-your-own-adventure kind of story. It's not like you can have just branching storylines. You will first do that or whatever. This is pretty much just going to be linear. But it not being a video game, you don't have things like gameplay, and there are no fetch quests, and you don't have side quests. And there's a lot more real storytelling that you are kind of forced to do, and that is the part which I'm kind of looking forward to. And the interesting thing is that there are only, some of you who actually have bothered to look at the library section on my website may have noticed that beyond chapter 4, there are only chapters 5 and 6 beyond this one, which means that it's not complete yet, which also means that I have not finished writing this retelling, which means that a lot of things are still open there. And I guess the interesting thing is that after I worked through chapters 5 and 6, then there probably something like another 30 or 50 chapters you could probably write after that to finish the whole story. That's a lot of reading and lots of writing for me as well, and I would really like to do that. Of course, we're now reached a point where the current end of the story is already there, another 2 chapters, and I would love to continue it. And I would also really love it if it got a bit of if my patrons were to support me in that, if I got more patrons, people became patrons to show their support for the continuation of this story. And the other ones, obviously, because there are so many more stories. There are other stories I still need to start, which I've written a couple of chapters for as well. And yeah, anyway, that's there's a lot of rambling right now. But another 2 chapters, and then we'll see how the story continues. I mean, I'm also really looking forward to that, because I still have this original concept in my head of how it's going to continue and how it's going to end, and this whole cinematic version of Ocarina of Time, quite unlike the video game. So I hope to see you then, and if you like this video, if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe, like this video, and consider becoming a patron of me on Patreon. Find a link in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and thank you for listening.